People don't like to talk about missing kids. Even in the safest neighborhoods, the ones with perfect lawns and cheerful holiday decorations, nobody wants to admit that something dark can grow behind those white picket fences. My name's John, and the street I grew up on was the kind of place real estate agents brag about. Quiet, clean, predictable. The kind of neighborhood where everybody waves, everybody smiles, and everybody pretends they're living the dream. But there was a boy on our street, a kid named Mikey Sanderson, who didn't fit into the picture-perfect postcard. He was small for his age, maybe 8 or 9, always alone, always in that same faded red jacket that looked 2 sizes too big. He'd sit in the dirt behind his house, digging holes or stacking rocks, like he was trying to build something only he understood. And then one day, he was gone. Not moved away, not staying with relatives, not sick at home, just gone, like he'd been erased overnight. What scared me wasn't Mikey disappearing. It was how everyone on the street reacted. They didn't panic, they didn't search, they didn't even whisper. It was like the whole neighborhood quietly decided that Mikey never existed at all. But I remembered him. And the more everyone else acted like he wasn't real, the more I started to wonder what they were trying to hide. A couple of days after Mikey vanished, I walked past the Sanderson house on my way home. Nothing physically changed. Same paint, same dead flower bed, same cracked walkway leading to the door. But something felt different. The place gave off this hollow, suffocating feeling, like the air around it had been drained. Like whatever lived inside wasn't supposed to be looked at. Every window was covered. Not blinds, actual cardboard taped up with strips of duct tape. The curtains were gone, the porch light was off, and the house felt abandoned. Not empty, just emotionally hollow, like something had happened there that nobody wanted to acknowledge. That's when I noticed something under the welcome mat. A piece of fabric, red, faded. I bent down and pulled it out, and my heart dropped. It was part of Mikey's jacket, the one he wore every single day, even when it was warm out. The stitching was torn, the fabric stained. When I lifted the mat completely, I saw dirt smudges trailing across the porch, and small indentations, almost like fingerprints, pressed into the grime. Little ones. Someone small had tried to grab the edge of the mat. Someone had tried to pull themselves inside, or keep themselves from being dragged out. Either possibility made my stomach turn. A week later, sometime after 1 a.m., I woke up to a tapping sound outside. Not a sharp knock, a soft, uneven tapping, like someone was gently hitting a wall with the back of their hand. I pushed open my blinds and looked outside. At first, I thought the street was empty, but then I saw movement near the Sanderson house. Something small, crouched near the side of the building. It was the size of a child, but the way it moved, something was wrong. Too low, too twisted, like its joints didn't line up under the skin. And that's when I saw the jacket. Red, faded, torn at the shoulder. Mikey's jacket. The figure lifted its head slowly, painfully, as if the neck wasn't working correctly. And for a split second, its face turned toward my window. The eyes didn't seem to focus. The mouth hung open just slightly. The whole expression looked like it was trying to copy what a human face should look like, but didn't quite understand how. Then it scrambled away, fast, disappearing behind the house on all fours. Like whatever was wearing Mikey's jacket wasn't used to walking like a person. I didn't sleep again before sunrise, because whether that was Mikey or something pretending to be Mikey, I knew I wasn't supposed to see it. The next morning, I walked straight to the Sanderson house. The red fabric in my pocket felt like a weight. Part of me hoped I'd imagined everything. The tapping, the figure, the jacket. But deep down, I knew I hadn't. I knocked on their door. No answer at first. Then, after a long pause, it opened a few inches and Mrs. Sanderson peeked out. She looked hollow, dark circles under her eyes, hair unwashed. Her hands trembled against the edge of the doorframe. I said, "Is Mikey home?" It was such a normal question, something any neighbor could ask. But the way she responded made my blood run cold. She blinked at me slowly, like the name didn't register, like she had to search her mind for a memory that wasn't there. Then she said, "We don't have a child." Her voice was flat, empty, like someone reading a line they were forced to memorize. I froze. My body knew instantly that something was terribly, violently wrong. I'd seen Mikey 1,000 times. I'd watched him ride his scooter, dig holes in the backyard, kick rocks down the sidewalk. But his own mother was looking at me like I was insane. I tried again. He lived here. He played in the yard. She shut the door before I could finish. I stood there on the porch, stunned, staring at the closed door like it might open again, and she'd laugh and say she misunderstood. It didn't. Instead, I noticed something else, something I had missed before, a set of small dirt footprints leading from the yard, straight up to the door. They stopped at the mat, and they didn't go back the other way. I couldn't shake it. The denial, the jacket, the thing I saw crawling behind the house. So later that same night, armed with a flashlight, I walked around the back of the Sanderson property. The backyard was unrecognizable. Once trimmed grass now grew in tangled patches. Toys that used to scatter the lawn were gone. Not moved, not put away, just absent, like they'd never been there. The windows were boarded from the inside, not nailed, hammered, sloppy, desperate. As I circled around, I saw a patch of ground near the fence line that looked disturbed, a long, narrow stretch of dirt where the soil was looser, like something had been buried there, or dug up. My stomach twisted. I kneeled, brushed my hand across the dirt, and felt something hard beneath the surface. A plastic edge. I dug with my fingers until I pulled it out. A toy. Not just any toy, Mikey's little yellow dump truck, the one he always carried around. I turned it over and saw something scratched into the bottom in shaky letters. "Help me." I staggered backward, heart racing so fast it hurt. But before I could process anything, I heard something from behind the house. A sound that froze every muscle in my body. A soft, choked breathing, mixed with the faintest, broken whisper. Cold. So cold. It was coming from under the porch. I lifted my flashlight, and the light hit something pale just barely visible through the slats. A hand, small, thin, fingers curled like claws. But it pulled back into the darkness before the light could reach it fully. I wanted to run, but something kept me rooted to the spot. Some horrible instinct telling me, that wasn't Mikey, not anymore. The next day, I knocked on a few neighbors' doors. I asked simple questions. Do you remember Mikey? Did you see anything strange at the Sanderson house? When's the last time you saw him? Everyone reacted the same way. Blank stares, forced smiles, shrugging like they had no idea who I was talking about. Some even pretended they didn't understand the question. It wasn't normal forgetting. It was avoidance, fear, a collective decision to bury something. By the fifth house, an older man named Wallace finally cracked. He stepped outside, closed the door behind him, and whispered, "You shouldn't be asking about that boy." I pressed him. What happened to him? He looked over both shoulders like he was afraid someone was listening. Not the neighbors, not the police, but something else. Then he said something that made my skin crawl. Mikey never should have come back up. I felt my throat tighten. What does that mean? But he didn't answer. He just walked back inside and locked the door. Come back up. The word stuck in my head, like Mikey hadn't disappeared, like he'd gone somewhere and wasn't supposed to return. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the thing wearing Mikey's jacket crawling behind the house. I saw the dirt footprints leading to the door. I saw the message scratched into the toy. So I stayed awake, staring out the window at the Sanderson house. Sometime around 2 a.m., the porch light flickered on. It hadn't worked in months. Then the front door creaked open, slowly, as if pushed by something with little strength. And something stepped out, small, unsteady, bare feet dragging softly against the wooden boards. It was wearing the same red jacket, but the body inside it moved wrong. Joints bending awkwardly, head tilting too far, back arched like something inside was pulling the limbs in directions they weren't meant to go. It stepped onto the porch, lifted its head, and even from across the street, I saw its eyes reflect the streetlight in a way no human eyes ever should. Then it whispered my name, not loud, not angry, just pleading. I stumbled backward from the window. When I looked again, it was gone, leaving only the porch light swinging slightly, as if something small and fragile had brushed past it a moment before. I moved away not long after. But sometimes, late at night, in places far from home, I still hear something tapping outside my window. Soft, uneven, like someone learning how to knock again. And I always wonder, if I opened the blinds, would I see that same red jacket? And would it still be Mikey wearing it? My name is Jack, and for most of my life, I never believed in anything paranormal, supernatural, or whatever else people like to blame their fear on. I believed in people. People doing horrible shit. People hiding horrible shit. People being capable of things that make monsters look polite. But nothing in my life prepared me for what I found living under my house. This all started a little after midnight on my second night there. The house was old, not charming old, just neglected old. Peeling paint, hollow doors, wood floors that creaked even when nobody moved. I was lying in bed, half asleep, when I heard it. A woman whispered my name, not from outside, not from the hallway, not from a dream, from directly underneath my bed, through the floorboards. What made me sit straight up wasn't the whisper itself. It was how she said my name. She said it like she'd been waiting years to say it out loud, like she knew me, like she'd been practicing. And the only thing separating her mouth from my ear was a few inches of rotting wood. I froze, because nobody else had a key to the house. Nobody knew I moved in, and absolutely nobody should have known my full damn name. I didn't move for almost an hour. I just sat there in the dark listening, trying to convince myself maybe I imagined it. Then I heard the breathing. Slow, wet, labored. The kind of breath someone makes when their lungs are failing, when every inhale scrapes the sides of their ribs. And it wasn't coming from a vent or a pipe. It was coming from the floor. I stood up slowly, putting my weight down 1 foot at a time. And every place I stepped, the breathing shifted. If I stepped closer to the wall, it followed. If I stepped toward the door, it followed. It wasn't an echo. It wasn't an animal. It was tracking me. I finally forced myself to whisper, "Who's down there?" And the breathing stopped. For a long moment, the silence hurt my ears. Then, from beneath the bed, in a voice that sounded exhausted, thirsty, and too close to be real, a woman whispered back, "Don't go." I backed away until I hit the wall, and for the rest of the night, the breathing just stayed there, right under me, like she was lying in the dirt, listening to my heartbeat through the floorboards. The next morning, with the sun finally giving me enough courage to pretend I wasn't losing my mind, I went outside to look for the crawlspace door. It was behind the house, half hidden under dead vines. What stopped me cold wasn't the door itself. It was the lock. It hadn't rusted off. It hadn't snapped. It had been cleanly cut, like with bolt cutters. Someone had been going in and out. I opened it, and warm air rolled out across my face. Human warm. Inside were things no animal could have left. A blanket, an empty gallon jug, half-eaten protein bars, scratches running along the wooden beams so deep they had splintered into curls. And then, the Polaroids, dozens of them, stacked neatly in a way that felt almost respectful, almost intimate. Every picture was of me, sleeping, cooking, leaning over the sink, walking out to get the mail. All taken from below, through cracks in the floorboards, angles that would require someone lying on their back, directly beneath me, camera pointed up through the slits. But the last Polaroid was different. It wasn't of me. It was of my bedroom door, taken from inside the crawl space. The timestamp wasn't precise. It just read, "Last night." My throat tightened. Because if that picture was taken last night, she was awake. She was watching. And she was still in there when I heard her whisper. That night, I shoved a dresser over the hatch inside the house, jammed a chair under my bedroom door, and slept with the lights on. Didn't matter. Sometime around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Slow, dragging. One heel scraping, then a pause, then the other. She wasn't under the floor anymore. She was inside the house. The doorknob to my bedroom turned once, then again, then fully until it clicked. But the door stayed shut. The chair held. Her breathing pressed through the crack beneath the door, shaky, excited, starving. Then she whispered, low and disappointed, "Why did you block the door? You never blocked it before." The way she said it, like we had a routine, like she'd been slipping into my room long before I ever heard her, made something inside me break. By the time the police arrived again, she was gone. No footprints, no signs of entry. Nothing disturbed outside. But sitting on my kitchen table was one last Polaroid. A picture taken through the crack of my bedroom door while I sat frozen in bed, staring back at it. The timestamp read, "Earlier tonight." And that's when I realized she didn't leave. She didn't disappear. She didn't move on. She learned the layout of my house. She learned how to avoid being caught. And now she's somewhere out there, living under someone else's home, waiting for the right moment to whisper their name. Some people fear ghosts. Some people fear the dark. I fear something much simpler. A locked door in a house that didn't belong to me. Because once you hear what was behind it, you'll understand why my neighbor kept it locked for 23 years, and why I wish to God he never gave me the key. My name's Evan, and I used to live in a quiet, nothing special neighborhood. One of those places where the houses all look the same. The mailman knows everyone, and people wave even if they don't like you. My next-door neighbor was a man named Mr. Calhoun. Older guy, polite but distant. He lived alone in a house that always looked a little darker than the others. Not messy or creepy, just dim, like the lights didn't reach the corners. Toward the end of last winter, he ended up in the hospital. He'd been getting weaker for months. I checked on him more than his own family did, so one afternoon he called me over and handed me a ring of old keys. His hands were shaking when he said, "Feed the cat, take the trash out, and whatever you do, don't open the basement door." I remember laughing a little, thinking he was making a joke. He didn't laugh. He didn't even blink. He just said, with this weak, cracking voice, "Promise me, Evan." And I promised. I wish I hadn't. The first time I went over there alone, it felt wrong. Not dangerous, just wrong. Like I was intruding on something private. The air smelled like dust and old wood. The cat hissed at the basement door every single time it walked past it, then fled and hid under the couch. That door stood out immediately. Not because it looked scary, but because it looked reinforced. A heavy deadbolt, 2 metal brackets installed from the outside, and a steel plate along the bottom, screwed in unevenly like it had been done in a hurry. You don't reinforce a door from the outside unless you're trying to keep something in. I told myself it was none of my business. I fed the cat, took out the trash, and left. But every night, lying in my own bed next door, I started hearing things. Faint thumps, slow dragging sounds like something was pacing beneath the floor. Sometimes it sounded like breathing. Sometimes whispering. But it wasn't until the 3rd night that everything changed. I came over after work, same routine as always, but this time, the basement door wasn't the same. There were scratch marks around the frame, fresh ones, thin lines cutting deep into the wood. Not like animal scratches. These were organized, almost patterned, like someone dragging their fingernails slowly and deliberately. There were more at the bottom of the steel plate. Scrapes, long ones, like something inside was trying to pry it up from underneath. The cat wouldn't even enter the hallway anymore. It stayed crouched in the living room with its tail puffed out, staring at that door like something was standing behind it. I pressed my ear to the wood. At first, nothing. Then, a knock. Slow, rhythmic, like something gently tapping, waiting for me to respond. I backed away quickly. I didn't go into that hallway for the rest of the night. A couple of days later, I visited Mr. Calhoun in the hospital. He looked weaker than ever, pale, sweating, barely able to keep his eyes open. When I told him something was scratching at the basement door, he grabbed my wrist with more strength than I thought he still had. He whispered, "Don't open it, even if it sounds like someone you know, especially then." I asked him what was down there. He closed his eyes, a tear rolling down his cheek. Then he said, "It's my brother." My heart sank. I didn't understand. He continued, "He wasn't always like that. It started after the accident. He came home wrong, not in pain, just wrong." I asked him if his brother was dangerous. He shook his head slowly. "No, he's not dangerous. He's desperate. He wants out." Then he said something I'll never forget. "He can sound like anyone he wants." It was a stormy night when the basement door finally came undone. I heard the bang from my house, loud enough that it rattled my windows. I ran outside and saw that Mr. Calhoun's back door was swinging open, banging in the wind. Inside, everything was dark except for the hallway, where the basement door now hung open on one hinge. The steel plate was ripped from the frame. The brackets were bent outward. Something had forced its way up. I took one step inside and froze. In the living room, crouched in the corner, was a figure. I recognized the shape of its body. Human, slumped, thin. But the way it moved, jerky, hesitant, like it was learning how to control itself, made my skin crawl. Then it lifted its head, and it spoke in my own voice. "Evan, help me." Perfectly, exactly, like a recording. My whole body went cold. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then it said, in the weak, trembling voice of Mr. Calhoun, "Please, let me back downstairs." I ran. I didn't look behind me. The police found the house trashed, the basement torn apart. They searched the neighborhood for days. They never found the thing that came upstairs. Mr. Calhoun died 2 days later. He never said another word. His house has been empty ever since. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm taking out my own trash, I hear something faint from inside the dark house next door. A slow knock. 3 taps. Then silence. And every now and then, just when the wind dies down and the street goes quiet, I hear a voice that sounds exactly like mine whisper through the walls, "Evan, let me in." This next story comes from a woman named Lucy. She told me what happened to her, and I'm going to share it exactly the way she described it, from her perspective. Because after you hear what happened on the last train that night, you'll understand why she hasn't taken the subway alone ever again. My name is Lucy, and I've lived in New York almost my entire life. I'm used to the subway. I've taken it at every hour, after work, after parties, after heartbreaks, after everything. Nothing ever scared me down there, until the night I stayed on the last northbound train and saw something I should have never seen. It started after midnight, on a mostly empty platform. The kind of platform where the lights flicker and you feel like someone's watching even when no one is around. When the 6th train pulled in, there were only 2 other passengers getting on. A woman in a puffy coat half asleep, and a construction worker staring at the floor. Normal midnight commuters. But a few stops later, the train did something I'd never experienced. The lights flickered, then dimmed to that orange emergency glow. And instead of slowing down, the train sped up. I waited for the conductor's voice. Instead, the speaker crackled and a voice came through. Not his voice, a deeper, slower one, like someone speaking through thick water. All passengers remain seated. Do not approach the doors. The woman woke up instantly. The worker looked right at me, eyes wide. Then we flew past the next station without stopping, and the next, and the next. At first, I thought mechanical failure. Then I saw something I'll never forget. As we blew past a dark platform, I caught a glimpse of something standing on the tracks. Not beside them, on them. Tall, too tall. Thin arms hanging low, head tilted like it was listening. And for the brief moment our car passed, it leaned forward, as if it was trying to see inside the train, like it was counting us. The train lurched violently. The lights went out. The whole car fell into blackness except for the faint blur of tunnels whipping past. I felt my throat tighten. I knew, whatever we saw, it wasn't supposed to be there. When the lights flickered back on, I noticed something impossible. There were more people standing in the car, but the train had never stopped. They weren't moving. They weren't breathing normally. Their eyes didn't blink. Their faces looked unfinished, soft, smoothed over like melted wax. 7, 8, maybe more of them, all facing us. One stepped forward, its mouth open too wide, and in a perfect imitation of the conductor's voice, it said, "All passengers, remain seated." The words came from somewhere behind it, not from its mouth. I felt sick. They weren't people. They were trying to be. The train screeched and slowed, not into a station, into a tunnel so old it looked abandoned. The doors hissed open even though there was no platform, just darkness. The things stepped off, one by one. They didn't walk. They just slid into the dark like shadows falling into deeper shadows. The last one paused before exiting, turned its soft, wrong face toward me. And in my voice it whispered, "Lucy, stay on the train." Perfect. Identical. I felt my whole body go numb. Then it vanished. When the train finally stopped at a normal station, everything looked like nothing had happened. Bright lights, clean walls, normal announcements. The other 2 passengers ran. I couldn't move. The conductor walked through doing a routine check. I asked why the train skipped so many stops. He said, "It didn't. We've been making every stop on time." He looked concerned, like I was the strange one. But I know what I saw. And now, every time the train pulls into a station and the doors don't open right away, I listen, because sometimes, just before the doors slide apart, I hear a faint voice behind them that sounds exactly like mine. "Lucy, stay on."